start recording so you guys can watch this later. Okay, so we're gonna do the muscles of the lower limb today and the articulations of the lower limb, the articulations that you need to know. So I will share our screen. And this should be the lecture that is up on Canvas. I made a couple adjustments just by making sure that all the muscles were labeled, but this should be the exact lecture that is up on Canvas. Okay, let's get that out of the way. There we go. All right, lower appendage muscles, or muscles of the leg. Okay, so we are going to start with the rectus femoris, which is the muscle right in the middle of your thigh. And that is one of the 4 muscles in the quadricep group. But it is the most centered of those muscles. And so for this one, you would be able, or you do need to know origin, insertion, and action. So the origin of the rectus femoris is the anterior inferior iliac spine. So remember, we talked about those spines on Monday. Do we need to go back and point out where those spines are? Because I will. So let me see if I can move this. So anterior, inferior. So remember, there's 2 spines anteriorly, and then there's 2 spines posteriorly. So it's attaching to the inferior spine on the anterior side of the coxal bone. So you can see the tendon traveling up, and it goes up to here. Okay, inserts at the tibial tuberosity. So this rectus femoris, you have a tendon that starts right around here. That tendon wraps around the patella and then down and attaches below on the tibial tuberosity of the tibia. So that is where that bump on your shin, that is where the rectus femoris attaches to. So remember, your origin is the fixed point and your insertion is the movable point. Okay, then the action of this muscle when you flex the rectus femoris, that causes extension at the knee. Okay, the 4 muscles of the quadricep group, you do need to know all 4. Even though one of them is not pictured in this picture, you need to know the names of all 4. Because how could I teach you about muscles and quadricep and you only learn 3? It would be wrong. So first we'll start with the vastus lateralis. It is the most lateral muscle. So furthest away from the midpoint of the body. Rectus femoris is sandwiched in the middle, and on the other side, on the medial side, is your vastus medialis. The one muscle that you cannot see is underneath the rectus femoris, and that's your vastus intermedius. So just knowing that those are the names of the 4 quadricep muscles, being able to identify the vastus lateralis, the rectus femoris, and the vastus medialis. Okay. Moving up, looking at some of the smaller muscles, the tensor fasciae latae, I like that because it makes me think of coffee, is this thin little muscle right here, and it's attached to a long band of connective tissue called the iliotibial, oh, I'm going to get it wrong, iliotibial tract. And you'll see that better in another picture. But the tensor fasciae latae is actually a smaller muscle. And so origin of the tensor fasciae latae, the lateral edge of the iliac crest. So it's actually, so we have the iliac crest and we have two spines. I'm exaggerating the spines here. Okay. So on the lateral edge of the iliac crest. So the iliac crest is this whole portion here. And so lateral edge would be over here. Okay, insertion point, proximal tibia. So the tibia closer to the knee joint, that portion closer to the knee. And when you flex the tensor fasciae latae, that causes abduction at the hip. So does anybody want to describe what abduction means?
Taking it away from the center of the body.
Very good, right. Moving it away from the center of the body. So you flex that muscle, it's causing you to pull that leg away. Very good. Then we have the gracilis, which is medial with thinner, long, thin muscle. And so this is, the origin is the inferior region of the pubis. So this is part of the pubic bone. What was that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I unmuted. My boyfriend's playing video games.
I just didn't know if there was a question. You're good. I appreciate you guys speaking up when you can. So origin, inferior portion of the pubis here, inserts into the medial surface, the proximal portion of the tibia. So both the tensor fasciae latae and the gracilis insert onto the tibia. And so what's interesting is that the tensor fasciae latae and the gracilis are basically antagonists. If the tensor fasciae latae causes abduction at the hip, the gracilis, when you flex that muscle, causes adduction, causes you to bring that leg back towards the midline of your body. Okay, oops, all right. Looking at the three little middle muscles that we haven't talked about yet of the thigh. So remember here, this is our gracilis. If I could spell it right, gracilis. Oh, there's one we didn't identify, the sartorius. And this sucker attaches up at the ilium, wraps around and down into the medial portion of your tibia as well. So this thin, long muscle wraps from your hip all the way down to the inside of your leg and to the proximal portion of the tibia. Okay, so then the three muscles we haven't talked yet about are the iliopsoas, the pectineus, and the adductor longus. And sometimes you will see that the iliopsoas is actually even further subdivided into the iliacus and the psoas major. I'm not going to do that, but I'm just making you aware that they can be subdivided even further. So we're just going to call it the iliopsoas and make our lives a little bit easier. So the iliopsoas is kind of a broad rectangular muscle deep in the pelvic region. Pectineus, also kind of another triangular shaped muscle from what you can see, attaches to the pubic region. And then the adductor longus. So adductor longus, it's named for what it does and its shape. So what does the adductor do, if you had to guess?
Pulls it into your body.
Yeah, adducting. So it's involved, probably works alongside the gracilis as far as the same function. They're in the same location. It's called adductor. And then it's called longus because it is a longer muscle. Okay, so every muscle pictured here, you should be able to identify. Okay. Looking at the posterior view, the hamstring group. First, we're going to talk about the bicep femoris. And so we're looking specifically over here at the long head of the bicep femoris, which is the larger head. Okay, takes up quite a bit of room. The origin of the long head is the ischial tuberosity. So remember on Monday, I told you that sometimes people refer to that as their seat bone, kind of like an enlarged, bumpy portion of the ischium. Well, your bicep femoris, one of your hamstring muscles, attaches to that. And that's the origin, so that's the immovable or the fixed point. The insertion is to the head of the fibula. And so when you flex this muscle, you are causing flexion at the knee. So if we had a stick figure here standing sideways, it would cause flexion at the knee. Hi, just terrible. Okay, but that's the kind of action that you would see if you flexed your bicep femoris. So muscles of the hamstring group. You need to know which muscles belong to the hamstring group, okay? So the bicep femoris has two heads, a long head, which is the big obvious one, and then a short head right here. The short head is more lateral. And notice this big white track, this whole white section here, that's the iliotibial tract. And your tensor fascia latae is attached to that. A portion of your gluteus maximus is also attached to that. It's a very, very strong connective tissue sheet. In fact, we might even want to call it an aponeurosis. Okay. Semitendinosus sits right next to the long head of the bicep femoris. So semitendinosus right here. And then most medial is your semimembranosus. Okay. Does anybody know why we call these the hamstring muscles? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of what I have heard before is that when they slaughter pigs, they hang them up on hooks, and they hang them up on the long head of the bicep femoris and the semitendinosus. They string up the ham on those muscles.
They still do.
They still do? Okay.
Still do. Same with cattle.
Same with cattle as well. Okay, so that's why it's called the hamstrings. So know your hamstring muscle group. All the muscles listed here. I would expect you to know the iliotibial tract too, because it is so prominent. It's not a muscle, but it is an important sheet of connective tissue that has muscles attached to it. It's your gluteus maximus and your tensor fascia latae. Okay, looking a little closer, there's a couple muscles that we haven't covered, and some muscles that One muscle that we've already talked about, but we're getting the other side of the view, is the gracilis. So you can view gracilis because it's a very medial muscle from both the anterior and posterior view. One muscle that wasn't labeled in the previous slide is the adductor magnus. So it's this big muscle right here. And the adductor magnus is in the same place as the gracilis and the adductor longus. So it makes sense that the adductor magnus is going to have the same job of adducting, bringing the leg back towards the midline of the body. And then the gluteus maximus. And we'll have I think we have another picture of that coming up showing you the other, because there's 3 gluteal muscles. You have the gluteus maximus, the gluteus medius, and the gluteus minimus. And on humans, the gluteus maximus is the largest of the 3. But on other animals, it differs, because if it's a 4-legged animal, their gluteus maximus is not going to be as large in proportion because they don't need it to walk up on 2 legs like we do. Okay, looking at 2 of the gluteal muscles, we have the gluteus maximus, which covers up a host of other muscles. You can see part of the gluteus medius. Note that the gluteus medius attaches to the iliac crest. Kind of fills in that space there. But underneath that gluteus maximus, if you got out your dissection scalpel and dissected that gluteus maximus in half, you would find a lot more interesting things in there. And we'll have some pictures. So, just looking at the gluteal group, you need to know all 3 gluteal muscles. So on this picture on the right, you can see your gluteus maximus. It is the largest. Gluteus medius, attached to the iliac crest. In fact, they both are at least partially attached to the iliac crest. And then underneath the gluteus medius and gluteus maximus is the gluteus minimus right here. Kind of looks like a shell. And so the gluteus minimus, look, it's attached to, what is that structure on the femur? Does anybody remember?
Greater tuberosity?
Not the tuberosity. You're thinking tibial tuberosity in the tibia.
Trochlear, greater trochanter.
Yes. The greater trochanter. Is it trochanter? Yeah, I think it's trochanter. Now I'm getting myself.
You're right.
Yeah, it's trochanter. Very good. Good, good. So it attaches to that point. So it's an attachment site for muscle. If you had to guess, looking at the gluteus minimus, where would the insertion be? Where's the movable end?
Would it be where it's attached to the humerus or the femur?
Yes, where it's attached to the femur, because that is where you actually are going to have movement occur. Very good. So the origin would be up here on the iliac, in the iliac region of the coxal bone. Okay. So this is a great picture for the gluteal muscles, for pictures, for quizzing, for tests and stuff like that. And I will use stars this time almost exclusively as much as I possibly can to see if that eliminates any confusion for our next exam. Okay.
What'd you decide on the last exam?
I haven't had a chance to check those couple. I deleted a couple questions. I'm gonna have to see, I'm gonna have to delve in deeper to see if there's a lot of people who miss the same questions. And if a lot of people miss those same questions on the flexor extensor muscle groups, then I know that it was a problem with the picture. So it's going to take some more work for me to do. But I will let you guys know. This weekend, I'll be able to get a lot of work done. But for now, those ones that wouldn't load have been deleted. So you've automatically, the point value has gone down and your percent in the exam has gone up. So that's always a good thing. Okay, so we take away the gluteal group. We take away the gluteus maximus and the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus, and there's more under there. Okay, so these are the muscles that we're looking at now. The piriformes is the most, well, the minimus gets to stay, I'm sorry. The minimus gets to stay. The piriformes is kind of, almost looks like a tooth, okay? And it is the most superior of these little rotator group, okay? And underneath the piriformes is where the sciatic nerve actually inserts up underneath the piriformes and then up into the spinal column. So it's kind of cool when you're able, I know you're not able to do dissections this semester, and I'm sorry, but if and when you do get to do that, it's fun to be able to actually see these structures and where they go into each other. Okay, so below or inferior to the piriformes is a little guy called the superior gemellus. Not gemellus, gemellus. I just want to make sure I'm saying it right. And so related to the superior gemellus is the inferior gemellus. So the two smallest muscles are the gemellus. The one that's higher is the superior gemellus. The one that's lower is the inferior gemellus. So the gemellus are the smallest ones, okay? Then you have two more that are left, the obturator internus. And so the obturator internus, what might help you remember is look how it goes inside. It goes into that obturator foramen. So there's the obturator foramen right there. So obturator internus, it's muscle inside the obturator, okay? Then we have this thicker band of muscle, and that's our quadratus femoris. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 little muscles here. Remember, you've got a group. The gemellus muscles are a group. Those are the smallest ones. Superior is above, inferior is below. The obturator internus literally goes inside the obturator foramen, okay? That will help you remember, and it looks like it goes inside in the picture, or passes through. Your piriformes is the tooth-shaped muscle right next to the gluteus minimus. And then this band muscle is your quadratus femoris. So hopefully you can appreciate more about what's going on with those gluteal group. There's a lot more than just the gluteus maximus and medius and minimus. There's more little muscles under there doing important jobs. Okay, looking at the lower limb, from the knee down, we have some muscles we want to look at. So the first group is the gastrocnemius, which is always a fun name to call. You have a medial and lateral head of the gastrocnemius. You can see where it splits right there. So medial head, this is going to be closest to the midline of the body. Lateral is moving away from the body. So origins. Origin for the medial head is up here, and it's on the medial epicondyle of the femur. Okay, so the medial head attaches to the medial epicondyle. And likewise, the lateral head of a gastrocnemius attaches to the lateral epicondyle of the femur. So it's like they come in and wrap around and they're attaching up here on either side, the outer edges of the femur. The insertion point for the gastrocnemius is the calcaneus, your heel bone. And this big tendon here, what's the name of that tendon? Anybody?
Achilles tendon.
Achilles tendon is layman's term, which is, I don't have a problem with it, but specifically it is called the calcaneal tendon. If I could spell. Calcaneal tendon or Achilles tendon, because it's attached to that heel bone. Okay, so when you flex the gastrocnemius group, what action does it do? What does it do? Flex your calf. Does anything happen? Oh, guys.
That's how you kick a football or a soccer ball?
Yeah, you get flexion at your ankle. Yeah. So when you're flexing your ankle, you're flexing that gastrocnemius muscle. Okay. Good. Oh, it's not letting me. Okay, there we go. So if we take away the gastrocnemius, there are some smaller muscles. Well, there's one big muscle, but then a couple smaller ones under there that are of note as well. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so the biggest one that's kind of sits right behind the gastrocnemius is the soleus. And it's a big sheet muscle behind the gastrocnemius. A little tiny muscle with a long tendon is the plantaris. And note how the plantaris is inserting way up on the femur. The popliteus is a muscle that's oblique and it wraps around. So from one side of the knee to the other. So if you were doing dissection at the knee, you would be able to see this oblique muscle kind of wrapping around the side of the knee. And so popliteus, where else have we heard that term popliteus or popliteal?
The popliteal behind the knee.
Yes, behind the knee. So the popliteal fat pad, for example, which would, just for informational purposes, that fat pad would be in here, protecting those ligaments and such that are right in there that we'll talk about in a little while. So popliteus is a muscle, it's behind the knee. Okay, looking at the lateral view of the lower leg. Lateral. First, going to look at the tibialis anterior. So it's named for its location, which is right there on the tibia, and then it's also its anterior. So this is a muscle that is associated with the tibia, the anterior portion of the tibia. And so that muscle is found right there at the front, right there, right next to the shin bone. Okay. Origin of the tibialis anterior is the lateral edge of the proximal portion of the tibia. So it's kind of out of view in this picture. Insertion into metatarsal number 1. So that actually goes to your foot. So when you flex your tibialis anterior, you are also causing your foot to flex upwards. Oops, sorry. Okay. Then we have the fibularis longus, and it's named for its location and its shape. So fibularis, what bones do you think it's associated with?
Fibula.
Fibula, and it's also a long muscle. It's from the head of the fibula all the way down to your metatarsals. So fibularis longus. This is on your lateral view. Then we see our gastrocnemius, which is, remember, we have a medial head and a lateral head. So we're looking at the lateral head of the gastrocnemius, since we're looking at a lateral view of the leg right now. And behind the gastrocnemius, or deep to the gastrocnemius, is where you find the soleus. Okay? So the soleus is kind of, in this picture, is sandwiched between the gastrocnemius and the fibularis longus. Okay, looking even closer, there's a couple small ones that we need to know. We see, here's our calcaneal tendon right here. There's our soleus, which also attaches to the calcaneal tendon. Our fibularis longus. And then there's 2 new ones. Fibularis brevis. What does brevis mean? Right, short. Fibularis brevis. And then this small muscle right here, the extensor digitorum longus. So if we took that word apart, extensor digitorum longus, so Ryan's going, it's long, yes. And then extensor, it's going to be involved in extending digits. So that extensor and then digitorum, so extending your digits upwards. So it's a long muscle that's involved in extending your phalanges of your toes. Okay. Let's see if I can zoom in on these. Nope. I thought when I touched this before, I'm sorry, I'm playing around. I'm trying to get it bigger for you. Okay, apparently I can't. I swear I did it before and was able to get it enlarged. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're looking at the posterior view of the leg. We have taken away the gastrocnemius, and we've taken away the soleus. There are some muscles back there still. These are deep muscles. You can better see the flexor digitorum longus. Now you can see just how long it is. There's also the tibialis posterior, and that is one of the most deep muscles. You have to get really back there and dig around to find the tibialis posterior. So it's right here, okay? And we would call that muscle shape, see how it kind of branches like this? Bipinnate, because it has that structure. Okay. Right there behind the calcaneal tendon is the flexor hallucis longus. So let's think about this. Flexor, flexing, hallucis. What is that referring to?
Alex.
Hallux, yes. So, and then longest is long. So this is a muscle that's involved in flexing the hallux, the toe, the big toe. So when that muscle flexes, it causes flexion in the big toe. And then on the lateral side over here, we have the fibularis longus. And you can see that it attaches to the fibula, and it is quite a long muscle. Flexor digitorum longus, you can see that twice. Okay, so what's different about this picture is that you just have the flexor hallucis longus and the fibularis longus removed so that you can see the flexor digitorum longus better and the tibialis posterior better. Note that the tibialis posterior, as I mentioned, it's bipinnate and it's attached to the shaft of the fibula as well as the tibia. So it's attached to both. Okay, then looking at the muscles of the foot, there are not as many to know as you had to know for the hand. Just three for this. So this group, so here's our big toe, our hallux. Okay, we'll start on the hallux side. This muscle right here, our abductor hallucis. So what kind of movement would happen when you flex the abductor hallucis?
Your toe would go outward.
Right, your toe would move away. Very right. Good. Then on the opposite side, we have the abductor digiti minimi, which means abduct the little toe. Right, so that would cause the little toe to move out. And then you have a muscle group that basically goes to digits 2, 3, 4, and 5, the flexor digitorum brevis. And this is involved in just the flexion of each of your toes from 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have a separate one for the hallux, which you don't have to learn. And so flexor digitorum brevis, it's relatively short and has long tendons. So those are the three that you need to know for the foot. Not too bad. Okay, we have just a few slides to go over for our articulations, and then I will let you go for the night, okay? So let me find that. There we go. Can everybody see that? Yeah? Okay, thank you. All right, so we're starting back up with the hip, the joint, the articulation between the head of the femur and the coxal bone in the acetabulum. So remember, the lunate surface is the really smooth portion within the acetabulum. This will be lined with cartilage. And there is a ligament that originates from the coxal bone called the ligamentum teres. And this attaches to the head of the femur in the fovea centralis. That's what that dimple is there for. So lunate surface. So head of the femur in the fovea, oh, I'm sorry, fovea capitis. Fovea centralis is in your eye. Sorry, fix your notes, fovea capitis. Sometimes I get my anatomy terms switched around, I apologize. We're all human, right? Yeah. Okay, so here we can see the head of the femur, your ligamentum teres cut, fits right into your fovea capitis. See if I can write that better this time. Fovea capitis. And so that literally helps hold the femur into that ball and socket joint. So as long as that ligament is not damaged, you're hoping that you're not going to have a dislocation of your femur.
And that slide we don't have, right?
This one should be on there. If it's not, I will re-upload it so that you do have it, because I think it's a pretty helpful picture.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
You don't have that? Okay, I'll re-upload after class so that you have there's like 2 pictures I added. So you have the extra picture to study from, because I like this one because it shows you where it attaches to on both sides. I'm glad you said something. Okay, so you need to know your ligamentum teres. I would like you to know your transverse acetabular ligament, which basically transverse right across the acetabulum. And you can see that here as well. Your transverse acetabular ligament is right there. So 2 important ligaments associated with that ball and socket joint. Okay. Then we have our iliofemoral ligament, number 2, which is this region. And then the pubofemoral ligament, which is more of this area. And these ligaments basically encase the neck and head of the femur in their socket in the acetabulum, which helps stabilize that joint, give it more integrity, and keep those bones together. So note what feature on the femur is attached to the Which feature on the femur is the iliofemoral ligament attached to?
Greater trochanter.
It's more than just the greater trochanter. It's that ridge
Intertrochanter
between
line.
Yeah, and the notch,
the
intertrochanter
intertrochanteric crest.
crest.
Yeah, so it's the big ridge. The line is on the posterior side. It's not as obvious. This is where you have that intertrochanteric crest between the trochanters. So yeah, a lot of those surface features that we've been learning are attachment points for tendons and ligaments, which is another great reason why we need to learn them. And then the pubofemoral ligament is named for where you find it attached to the pubis and the femoral bone. I have a couple pictures to show you these. Oh, maybe it was the line. I was wrong, guys. This is the line. I can be wrong sometimes. This is the line. Because this is the crest. Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. So please make that change in your notes so you don't get that wrong. So backing up, the intertrochanteric line is where the iliofemoral ligament attaches onto the femur. I am sorry. Looking at the posterior view, so this is posterior, we have another ligament that is also wrapping around and further stabilizing that joint, that lovely ball and socket joint. And this is the ischiofemoral ligament, and it's attached to the ischial portion of the, oh, come on, attached to the ischial portion of the coxal bone. And here's our ischial tuberosity. Ooh, does anybody remember what muscle we talked about today attaches to the ischial tuberosity?
Gluteus maximus.
Not your gluteus maximus, it's one of your hamstring muscles.
Is it the semimembrananeous?
The semimembranosus is, you'll get these. It's close. Think about it, it's like your legs equivalent of the biceps brachii.
Biceps femoris long head.
Yes, the long head of the bicep femoris. And see how rough it looks? See how that pittedness? That is allowing to have those collagen fibers of that tendon attach very strongly to that attachment site. So that's why it is rough and bumpy, is so that it provides a good attachment site for the long head of the bicep femoris. The more you know. Okay. All right. This picture here, this is the other one that I threw in, and I only threw it in so that you could kind of see, I had different colors to kind of see, because it's all white. So you could see the ligaments in their separate, where they attach. And so anteriorly, we have the iliofemoral ligament, which would be more superior, and our pubofemoral ligament, which is more inferior. And specifically, if we drew a line through the coxal bone right there, the pubis is this side and the ilium is above. So it makes sense that it would call it the iliofemoral ligament. And then the green one, because it's attached to the pubis region, would be called the pubofemoral ligament. And likewise, when we're looking at the posterior view, it's called the ischiofemoral ligament because this back portion, here's our ischial tuberosity. This back region here is the ischium. So we would call it the ischiofemoral ligament, attaching between the ischium and the femur. So each of these three ligaments are named for the region of attachment that they come from, their origin and their insertion. Okay, moving to the knee. There's a lot of little things going on at the knee. Okay. So first of all, we're going to look at the patellar ligament, which is this right here, attaches to the tibial tuberosity. And so if you remember, the rectus femoris is the tendon for the rectus femoris, and rectus, if I could write, rectus femoris tendon actually runs on top of the patella. It's not bare. If you looked at the surface of a real patella, it would have ribs in it, and that's from the attachment points of the tendon. So it runs over the patella and attaches down at the tibial tuberosity. Okay, the fibular collateral ligament, number 2, is just this long skinny portion attaching to the fibula, the head of the fibula, to the lateral epicondyle of the femur. Then, almost the same name on the other side, the tibial collateral ligament runs from the tibia up to the medial epicondyle. These two ligaments help stabilize the knee joint and give it some more structural integrity. And we have some more ligaments that we'll talk about that help with that as well. So specifically, the ligaments of the knee, some of the ones that you guys are familiar with, and some associated structures. So first I want you to notice, so this is looking at the knee joint, and you have this whole, you see this surface here, it's all white. It's coated with cartilage because you have your patella that's articulating here, and your knee bends, these condyles bend and roll along those epicondyles, and so you need to have a smooth, slick surface as you bend your knee. So first, talking about that, there is padding between your femur and your tibia. And that specifically would be your lateral meniscus, number 6 right here, associated with the lateral condyle. Underneath your lateral condyle and beneath and above the lateral epicondyle is your lateral meniscus. And then on the medial side, you have your medial meniscus. Then you have 2 small ligaments that are the cause of many people's sports injuries. Your ACL, your anterior cruciate ligament, and your posterior cruciate ligament. So your ACL, number 4, is this ligament right here. And it runs in between, attaches to that intercondylar eminence, that bony protuberance between your condyles, attaches to that and up into the posterior region of the femur in the popliteal area. And then number 5, your posterior cruciate ligament is posterior to your anterior cruciate ligament. And both of these are protected by that popliteal fat pad that you have that sits behind your knee and helps protect those ligaments. And that, my friends, is it for our muscles and our articulations. I think that we're good for what we need to cover today. Let's look ahead on our schedule really quick. So don't leave quite yet. Let's find our schedule. Maybe once, if I can find it, give me a sec. Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll go to our schedule and see what we have on board for next week. Okay, so on October 12th, what day is the 12th?
Monday.
That's Monday? Yep, okay, so on Monday, quiz 4, that will be of lower appendages. So of bone, muscle, and articulations. We have not done blood vessels and nerves yet. So only what we have covered. Let's see. And looking ahead, you have, oh my goodness, fall break is coming up. Yay! Okay. The only thing that stinks about that is you have your exam the Wednesday after fall break. I'm sorry. I try not to do that. I really do try not to do that. I'll try to do as the other class, my physiology class got me into this program called Kahoot. And what we'll try to do is maybe on the 14th, do a Kahoot session in class and go over some of the stuff that you can expect to see on your exam. Sound good? Okay, I get one yes from Ryan. Thank you. Okay, are there any questions about today? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Any questions about today or looking forward? I would just say, if you do not have a grade,
Hold on. Okay.
is that someone in the class?
Oh, that's my boyfriend in the background playing video games. I'm sorry.
I was like, okay, I'm holding on.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's the joys of Zooming.
Oh, yeah. And then this is the other, whenever I'm at home.
Kitty fall asleep?
Yeah, this is how he demands to be held.
Oh,
Like having an actual baby.
like a baby.
Uh-huh.
I had a cat like that too, and he was like 18 pounds, and he was just a big, tall cat. We used to joke his dad was a bobcat. and that he wanted to be held like a baby.
Well, I
All the
hope he
time.
doesn't want to do this when he gets bigger, because right now it's fine because he's so little, but
If
Yeah.
he's gonna get old, maybe.
yeah, grow out
Yeah.
of it.
Gotcha. Well, you guys, if you have any questions about what we've talked about today, text me, send me an email. I'm a little behind on my emails, so I
Do
do
you have some homework
apologize if
due
you're
tomorrow?
waiting to hear from me. I'm working on getting caught up.
Do we have some homework due tomorrow?
I thought it was just tonight.
Oh, shoot.
Okay.
I thought it was due
So-
today too, at 9:59.
What I see due today would have been 5, 3, 5, 4, and 5, 5.
Oh.
If you've done that, then you're good. Your next homework is due on Monday, which is over the lower leg.
See, my
Which
dates are
one?
completely off from the schedule that you have.
Okay, let me check.
Because
let
I've
me go
got
to Top Hat.
6-1, I've got 6-1 and 6-2 are due on the 14th. And the 14th you had like 6-3, 6-5. And according to Top Hat, those are due the 21st.
Okay, let me just pull up in Top Hat right now. Let's get that squared away so I give you the correct answer the first time. If it will load for me. Okay. Okay, so 5. Yeah, so worksheet 5.3 and 5.5 are due today. Okay,
Those are done.
good. If they're not done, you have until midnight to complete those. Looking forward, your next homework is due October 14th.
Okay, so we're off of the syllabus then. So don't go off of the syllabus.
Let me make a new schedule with the homework on there for you, because it's not really matching up. You need to stick to the schedule you see on Top Hat.
Which is what I've been doing, but it's not
Good.
matching the syllabus. at
It's
all.
not matching the syllabus, so I'll
Which is
rework
making
that.
when the quizzes and exams, it's making it really hard when those are actually due.
Gotcha. I will work on that again this weekend and get an up-to-date one for you. Quizzes and exams are not going to change at all, but I'll just make sure that the homework dates are in the right times.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll get that fixed up. But for now, know that it is correct in Top Hat and to stick to those dates. Okay.
For the quizzes and exams.
For the quizzes and exams, it is correct on the schedule, but the homework is off.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's what I'm going to fix.
Okay. All right.
Yeah? Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? No? All right. You guys have been awesome as always. Thank you so much. Have a good night and stay healthy.
You too.
Thanks, and I'll
You
see
too.
you guys next week.
All right.
Bye.
Night, guys.
Night.
Right.